Natalie and Ethan's wedding day seemed like it would be the start of a happy life, but no one expected that. Right under that perfect facade, there was a cruel secret. Ethan, the man she was about to call her husband, was hiding a sinful relationship with her cousin. When the truth was revealed, what tragedy would happen on what was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives? Ethan Harrison was born into a middle-class family with high expectations. As the eldest son of a successful businessman in the financial sector, Ethan was raised with high standards and strict discipline. The Harrison family, although not upper class, always aspired to reach the top, valuing fame and success above all else. From a young age, Ethan was educated in the best private schools and participated in prestigious sports activities. He was taught to always maintain a perfect public image, not allowing mistakes. Ethan's upbringing was not limited to academics, but also focused on cultivating a perfect image, something the Harrison family always valued. However, beneath his perfect exterior, Ethan's life was not smooth. His father's demands and his mother's strict control left him feeling isolated and lacking genuine emotional connection. Ethan found solace in his studies and sports, especially soccer. With his leadership and team spirit, Ethan quickly became the captain of the team and was well respected. After graduating, he was accepted into an Ivy League university, where he continued to excel both academically and athletically. However, college life did not help Ethan escape the shadow of his family. The pressure to maintain his family's reputation, combined with his desire to discover himself, left him feeling lost in his quest for his true identity. Despite his strong and confident appearance, Ethan felt a lack of affection and recognition from his family. Ethan met Natalie Evans while he was in college. Natalie was the daughter of a wealthy family, with a famous fashion designer mother and a successful lawyer father. She grew up surrounded by the upper class, always enjoying the best that money could buy. Natalie was attracted to Ethan's intelligence and strong appearance, while Ethan saw in Ethan's sophistication and charm that he had always sought. Their relationship quickly developed, and they were engaged soon after. However, their relationship was not always smooth sailing. Both faced many difficulties and obstacles on the road to each other. One of the biggest challenges was the difference in lifestyle and family. Natalie's family was wealthy and had a high social status, while Ethan came from a middle-class family with different values. Natalie's parents, especially her mother, always expected their daughter to marry someone of similar social status. She disapproved of Ethan, believing that he was not worthy of their daughter. In her eyes, Ethan was a man of low status, and she was concerned that he would not be able to provide Natalie with the comfortable life she wanted for her daughter. She repeatedly pressured Natalie to end the relationship, even introducing other men who were more financially and socially suitable. Natalie's family's opposition created a huge gap between the two. Natalie, although in love with Ethan, began to feel torn between her love and her family's expectations. Ethan, knowing that he could not meet Natalie's family standards, began to have low self-esteem and doubted their ability to maintain their relationship. Arguments began to erupt between them, leaving both of them feeling exhausted and stressed. There were times when they both thought of breaking up to free each other from the pressure, but their love was too great to give up easily. Another challenge is the differences in thinking and life goals. Ethan always wanted to pursue his career in finance, to prove to his family and society that he could succeed in his own way. Meanwhile, Natalie, under the influence of her mother, wanted a more luxurious and stable life. These differences gradually became a difficult-to-heal crack in their relationship. Ethan felt pressured to succeed quickly to meet Natalie and her family's expectations, while Natalie felt dissatisfied with the speed of Ethan's career development. However, these difficulties could not stop them. Through each challenge, their love became stronger. They learned to understand and accept each other, and at the same time found common ground to build a future together. Ethan decided to face Natalie's family, frankly presenting his love and commitment. He started to work harder, not only to prove himself but also to gain respect from her family. Finally, after many meetings and conversations, Natalie's family gradually accepted Ethan. They saw his sincerity and determination in bringing happiness to Natalie, and this changed their minds. Natalie's parents, especially her mother, although still a bit hesitant, finally agreed to hold the wedding. The whole family began planning a grand wedding, expected to be a big event of the year, with the participation of many important guests. The wedding preparations were bustling, from choosing the location, booking the party, to trying on the wedding dress. Everything was meticulously planned to ensure their big day would be perfect. Everything seems perfect, but beneath the surface of this harmony, a dark secret is brewing. Ethan is trying to build a future with Natalie, when he meets her cousin Daniel at a family reunion. Daniel is a young, energetic, and charismatic college student. Daniel grew up in an environment with less pressure and strict family rules, the complete opposite of Ethan. When Ethan and Daniel first meet, they immediately feel a special connection. During their initial conversations, they realize that they share many of the same thoughts and feelings, especially when it comes to family pressures and societal expectations. Ethan and Daniel's meetings became more frequent, especially when Ethan felt tired and stressed from his relationship with Natalie. Daniel became a source of comfort and relief for Ethan, helping him to release the mental burdens he had always been carrying. With Daniel, Ethan felt he could be completely at ease, without having to pretend to be perfect or hide his true feelings. The two often spent hours talking about life, their dreams and worries. Daniel's freedom and openness began to attract Ethan, urging him to explore a new side of himself that he had never dared to think about before. Ethan and Daniel's relationship begins with harmless conversations, but gradually both realize that there is an undeniable attraction between them. Daniel is attracted to Ethan's maturity and elegance, while Ethan sees in Daniel the freedom and energy that he lacks in his life. Their meetings no longer stop at casual conversations, but begin to go further. Every time he is with Daniel, Ethan feels like he has lifted the burden of life, something he cannot have when he is with Natalie. Feelings of guilt begin to creep into Ethan's mind, but he cannot resist the temptation and growing desire for Daniel. Their relationship quickly turns from friends into a passionate, tormenting yet stimulating relationship, causing Ethan to sink deeper and deeper into a spiral of guilt. Ethan knew full well that his relationship with Daniel was wrong, but he couldn't resist the passion that surrounded them. The secret meetings became more frequent, and Ethan became more and more adept at hiding them. He invented perfect excuses to cheat on Natalie, from unscheduled business trips to anonymous meetings, all as a cover for sinful trysts with Daniel. Under the perfect guise of a devoted fiancé, Ethan and Daniel met in places Natalie would never expect. Daniel's visits to Ethan's office were also discreetly arranged, carefully ensuring that no one would notice their true relationship. Daniel often waited in the car, eyes fixed on the office door, waiting for the moment when they could leave without anyone suspecting anything. After Ethan finishes his work, the two will drive to a place far from the city, where no one knows them, where they can enjoy moments together without fear of being discovered. The tension was further heightened when the three of them were present at family gatherings. Ethan and Daniel had to play the perfect role, hiding their relationship under the guise of close relatives. They had to pretend that nothing was happening, but the furtive glances between them did not escape Natalie's notice. One day, at a family dinner, Natalie noticed Ethan and Daniel's eyes meeting meaningfully as they exchanged a joke. Although they quickly looked away, Natalie could not forget that moment. A feeling of suspicion began to grow in Natalie. She felt that something was wrong, but she could not put her finger on it. Meanwhile, Ethan and Daniel had to put on a perfect act around Natalie, hiding their anxiety that their secret might be exposed at any moment. Every time the three of them were in the same room, the atmosphere became more and more stifling. Ethan began to avoid meetings with Natalie's family, especially when Daniel was present, to ease the tension. One day, when Daniel visited Ethan and Natalie's house, the three of them sat in the living room. Natalie left the room to get more drinks, leaving Ethan and Daniel alone. In that brief moment, tension and passion rose, and they secretly exchanged a haunting glance. When Natalie returned, she felt a strange tension in the air, but couldn't figure out why. Despite trying to continue the conversation, Natalie noticed that both Ethan and Daniel were no longer as natural as before, which only made her more worried and suspicious. Each encounter makes Ethan feel more and more torn between his undeniable love for Daniel and his responsibility to Natalie. The guilt becomes an unbearable burden, but at the same time the passion and excitement in his relationship with Daniel makes him unable to stop. The secret calls and deleted messages only add to Ethan's stress, knowing that if he makes a mistake, everything will collapse. But even though he knows he is walking on a thin line, Ethan cannot stop. Every time he and Daniel are together, the passion and excitement are too strong, pulling him into a spiral with no way out. As Ethan and Natalie's wedding day approaches, Ethan's pressure and guilt increase. He begins to fear that his secret relationship will be discovered. Ethan becomes tense and anxious whenever he is around Natalie. Sometimes he cannot hide his distraction when they talk, which makes Natalie even more suspicious. He began avoiding meetings with Natalie's family, especially when Daniel was present, so that no one would suspect anything. Daniel, though initially drawn to the secret relationship, begins to feel the pressure. As Ethan and Natalie's wedding day approaches, Daniel feels like he's on the brink of a cliff. His emotions are in turmoil, torn between his love for Ethan and his guilt for ruining his cousin's happiness. Yet during their secret meetings, Ethan and Daniel can't help but fantasize about a future together, a life without hiding or sneaking around. They talk about running away after the wedding, living somewhere far away where no one knows them. These plans, though vague and risky, give them both a sense of escapism and a faint hope. Ethan promises Daniel that after the wedding, he will find a way to work things out so they can both be true to their feelings. However, both understand that this is not an easy decision and the future they hope for may never come true. Natalie feels Ethan growing distant and begins to suspect that something is wrong. Ethan's unusual behavior, from abruptly ending calls to deleted messages to unexplained absences, worries her. She begins to notice the moments when Ethan avoids her gaze, especially when Daniel appears. Natalie cannot believe that her husband-to-be is having an affair with her own cousin, and that this cruel truth is slowly destroying everything she believes in. Daniel, during sleepless nights, begins to wonder if things could have been different if he and Ethan had really run away. But every time he thinks about leaving Ethan, the fear of loss and the haunting secret love flood his mind. He knows that all three of their lives are on the brink of an inevitable tragedy, but he does not have the courage to stop it. In the final weeks before the wedding, Natalie began to pay more attention to Ethan's behavior. Her suspicions grew every time Ethan said he had an important meeting or would be late. One evening, when Ethan said he had an important meeting and would be late, Natalie decided to check his words. She called Ethan's office, but no one answered. Feeling suspicious, Natalie decided to follow Ethan. She drove to his office and found that his car was not there. This made her feel uneasy, but she was not really prepared for what she was about to discover. One night, while Ethan was fast asleep, Natalie tried to unlock his phone. Worried, she patiently tried the unlock codes until she finally got it open. The truth slowly dawned on Natalie as she discovered the messages Ethan had tried so hard to hide. Her heart ached as she realized that the man she was about to marry had betrayed her with her own cousin, someone she had never expected. The affectionate text messages, the secret rendezvous, were all too obvious to deny. She couldn't believe her eyes as she read the sickening text messages between Ethan and Daniel. Natalie couldn't contain her pain and anger. She remembered the times Ethan lied to her, the times he came home late, and the phone calls that were cut short when she showed were cut by. Her suspicions were confirmed, and she was faced with the painful truth that the man she loved had betrayed her. One afternoon, Natalie decided to come home earlier than planned without telling Ethan. As she entered her house, she heard laughter and whispering from the upstairs bedroom. Her heart stopped. A chill ran down her spine. As Natalie went upstairs, she realized that the laughter belonged to Ethan and Daniel. The bedroom door was ajar, and through the crack, she saw Ethan and Daniel kissing, completely unaware that they had been discovered. They were making out on the same bed where she and Ethan had shared their happiest moments. Natalie couldn't believe her eyes. The sight before her was like a sharp knife piercing her heart, shattering all the trust and love she had for Ethan. She stepped back, a feeling of chaos and despair rising, as if her whole world was collapsing around her. The pain was indescribable. Every memory of Ethan's lies, his late arrivals, and his cut-off phone calls suddenly appeared in her mind, like pieces of a cruel betrayal. The image of Ethan and Daniel together was not only a betrayal, but also an insult to her self-esteem, like invisible knives stabbing deep into her heart. The strange scent of Ethan's shirt that she had suspected now became a painful answer, confirming everything she didn't want to believe. Heartbroken, Natalie turned and walked away, but each step was heavy with anger and determination. This betrayal could not be ignored, could not be forgiven. She knew that she could no longer avoid the truth, could not let things end quietly. In her mind, there was only one thing left: revenge. The pain had turned into rage, burning away every remaining emotion in her. That night, when Ethan returned home, Natalie kept her appearance normal, but inside she was a storm of uncontrollable anger. Her every word, every action was carefully considered, not to forgive but to prepare for the most brutal revenge. She did not confront Ethan directly, because her anger demanded a bigger stage where everyone would witness his downfall. The wedding day would be the day the truth would be revealed, and Ethan would pay the price in front of everyone he cared about. Natalie carefully collected all the evidence of their relationship: text messages, photos, and confessions in secret conversations she had read on Ethan's phone. She backed it all up on a flash drive and kept it safe, determined that everything would be exposed in time so that Ethan and Daniel could not deny it. In the days leading up to the wedding, Natalie maintained a normal appearance, participating in all the preparations with an unnerving calm. She attended wedding dress fittings, met with the event planner, and even chatted intimately with Ethan and Daniel as if nothing had happened. On the wedding day, Natalie maintained a perfect appearance. She wore a pure white wedding dress, put on beautiful makeup, and walked down the aisle with a forced smile, hiding the emotions boiling inside. In her mind, she had visualized every step of her plan, every moment when she would reveal the painful truth in front of everyone. As she entered the chapel and saw Ethan waiting, she felt her heart break, but at the same time felt the satisfaction of revenge approaching. When it came time to exchange vows, Natalie stood facing Ethan. Her eyes looked straight at him without any hesitation. Instead of saying words of love, Natalie openly accused Ethan in front of all the guests of his affair with Daniel. Her words were sharp and challenging, like knives stabbing Ethan's self-esteem. Ethan was completely stunned by this confrontation, not knowing how to react. Everything seemed to stop as everyone in the hall gradually understood what Natalie was saying. Daniel, who was standing in the crowd, could not avoid everyone's eyes. Being pushed into a difficult situation, he felt an overwhelming sense of regret and fear of consequences that he never wanted to happen. He felt like the whole world was collapsing around him as people started whispering, pointing and looking at him with contempt. Ethan, feeling guilty and exposed, tried to explain to Natalie, but she did not give him the chance. In anger and pain, Natalie announced the cancellation of the wedding, leaving everyone speechless. Her statement was like a final knife cutting off all connection between them. The ceremony, which was supposed to be the happiest day, turned into a nightmare. Not stopping there, Natalie's anger reached its peak. She returned to the altar, holding a knife from the dining table in a fit of rage. Natalie, in a rage that could not be controlled, rushed towards Daniel with a sharp knife in her hand. She was no longer the gentle bride in her pure white dress, but the embodiment of anger and pain that could not be soothed. Daniel, seeing Natalie approaching, tried to move away, but it was too late. In a moment of explosive violence, Natalie stabbed Ethan, who had stood up to stop her. The knife was deeply embedded in Ethan's body, blood flowing out and staining his elegant wedding dress red. Time seemed to stop as he slowly fell to the ground, his face filled with horror and regret. Daniel, seeing his loved one dying on the altar floor, felt despair and anger explode in his chest. He rushed to Ethan's side, his trembling hands clutching his weakened body, feeling his lover's heartbeat slowing. The sense of loss and hatred swirled through Daniel, turning into a tidal wave that swept him into a decision with no way back. Daniel's eyes darkened. He stood up and looked at Natalie, who stood still, completely unaware of the consequences of his actions. In that moment, all of Daniel's rationality was consumed by pain. He picked up a heavy ornament nearby, and without hesitation, he brought it down on Natalie's head. The blow was powerful, brutal, and precise, causing Natalie to collapse instantly, blood pouring from the wound on her head. The wedding hall, once decorated for the happiest day of the couple, was now filled with an eerie silence. The guests' screams of horror echoed everywhere, but no one dared to approach. Daniel stood there, gasping for breath, his hands covered in blood and his eyes filled with horror at what he had just done. When the police arrived at the scene, they found a bloody and chaotic scene. Ethan was dead in Daniel's arms, and Natalie was lying motionless on the floor, blood splattered all around. Daniel, completely broken, sat beside the two bodies, his eyes staring blankly into space, feeling nothing but emptiness. He did not resist when the police handcuffed him and was no longer aware of what was happening around him. The wedding, which should have been the happiest day of his life, had now become an unimaginable tragedy. 2 lives were taken in an instant, leaving scars that would never heal in the hearts of all who witnessed it. The horrifying memories of that day will haunt them for the rest of their lives, and no one can forget the cruelty of fate, when love is betrayed and hatred is pushed to its ultimate limit.